Welcome to Barron's Roundtable, where we get behind the headlines and prepare you for the week ahead. I'm Jack Hough, in for Jack Otter. Coming up, healthcare stocks have slumped this year, but it may be the perfect time for investors to buy. We'll tell you what Wall Street is eyeing. Plus, Bitcoin is climbing again. What's behind the crypto rally and what's next for investors? But we begin with our expert panel and three things investors ought to be thinking about right now on the Barron's Roundtable. My colleagues, Ben Levison, Megan Leonard, and Al Root. Ben, great week for the stock market. Why?
That's a good question, because there was a ton of noise, right? We had Shopify and Arista. They did great on their earnings, but we also had tariffs and we had changes to the Fed. And it was all okay, though. The market just didn't care. If S&P still rose over 2%. This close to an all-time high. The NASDAQ did close at an all-time high. And it's just not worried about things like tariffs.
Tariffs? I don't know, though. I think they're going to bite. We went from 2.5% last year to an 18% of tariff effective rate. This is something where 3/4 of that oomph that we are going to see yet to come. So we'll see, but I think maybe shrugging off prematurely here.
Going to be watching for that oomph. What about the narrowness of the rally? Does it worry you that it's big tech running up again?
It doesn't really. I mean, we see this a lot where everyone goes, oh, no, it's just big tech leading the rally higher. And then big tech underperforms and the other 493 stocks do really well. And then it does it all over again. So, yes, this week was a great week for big tech, up close to the Mag 7 were up close to 6%. Apple had an enormous move after announcing that it would spend an additional $100 billion to build factories in the United States. But
you say you're spending a lot of money, the stock runs up.
It is the weirdest thing. But, if it makes Trump happy, that's great for your stock. But right now, I think that's just what's going on. You're just getting this rotation. It's helping push the stocks up close to record high. And as long as that's what's happening, it's probably okay.
What are you going to be watching in the week ahead?
Well, we have two big economic releases. One is CPI. Core is supposed to come in around 3%, so it's ticking up a little bit. The headline number is also expected to tick up. But I'm also going to watch retail sales. That's supposed to go up 0.6% month over month. I look at XRT, which is the retail ETF. It gained 4% almost this week, which tells you that, people are feeling pretty good about the consumers. We'll see if that optimism is misplaced when we get that number next week.
Megan, Yeti Stock, it tanked this past weweek. I think I top-ticked the market for giant metal water canisters. I paid $65 recently for something called a 64-ounce Yeti Rambler with chug cap. That was for one of my kids. I somehow walk around without a massive tank of water each day, but the shelves at Dick's Sporting Goods, I can tell you, are absolutely filled with them. Have we reached peak chug? And is this a concern for Yeti stock?
Well, with consumers like yourself, I don't think we need to be worried about retail sales or Yeti stock. I think we're going to be just fine, right? But no, it really was an interesting week for Yeti. They had a disappointing report and, their sales have not been great. I do think we might be hitting some oversaturation in the market. But of course, you have to remember that Yeti has positioned itself for sort of that upper income household. These are not cheap things, as you pointed out, with the $65. So it is one of those situations where we've got to watch carefully. Luxury and sort of those discretionary goods have been trending a little bit better, but we'll see. Certainly Barron's has picked it in the past, and it could remain a pick for in the future.
And they have an expanding number of goods. They have camping chairs, skillets, flasks. That's everything Ben uses for a weekend. What about Crocs? That stock flopped too. Any similarities there?
I think we might be in for a little bit of a flame out. Let's be honest. The correlation between the kids that like the Yeti, the kids that like the Crocs, maybe investors need to be a little bit leery of the fads, if you will. But it was interesting with Crocs. We have seen a little bit on the fundamentals where they had a little bit of a disappointing guidance coming out, and that could be really what is pushing down the stock right now. It did have a very disappointing Thursday, nearly down 30%.
Wow, slammed. Al, the president signed an executive order that could make it easier to add crypto to your 401k. Crypto is the subject of our cover story this week. What do investors need to know?
Well, what they need to know, crypto is very confusing. But Bitcoin, it's basically doubled over the last year. On Friday, it was $116,000 for a Bitcoin. And, part of the reason, you're talking about the executive order, the White House went from crypto skeptical to crypto curious to now basically full crypto bro. And they want to see it adopted. And
is it pronounced bro or bruh?
I'm a bro guy, but I appreciate the alternative pronunciation. And so, that's leading to, funds flows. It's leading to volatility. I would just say that, we've said this many times. If you want to add crypto to your portfolio, you're thinking about adding it into your 401k when your sponsor offers it, just treat it like gold. We're talking 2%, not maybe as much as you would put, because I know, no, never mind. But just keep it small and work to understand it.
Okay, you've said that the opposite of crypto is a dividend-paying stock, and you have some for us.
Yeah, well, I also stole that from you. Ian Salisbury, our colleague, pointed out that actually the S&P over the past 5 years has beaten the NASDAQ when you consider reinvested dividends. The S&P yields about 2x the NASDAQ over that time frame, and it really made a difference. So, dividend payers are paying dividends out of real businesses that generate free cash flow, and that's a good thing. And 3, he pointed out that yield greater than 5% in the S&P. Utility Edison International, Advertiser Interpublic Group, and Prudential Financial. So 3 you can check out if you want income instead of crypto.
It's almost like the return in stock returns means something should literally be returned to you. Thank you all. Markets reacting to Trump's sweeping tariffs as investors eye Fed changes and rate cut hopes.